What's up creatives, this is Tom, welcome back to another video. So I'm here with Tommy, Gadgets Boy. We are testing the new iPhone 12 Pro. I thought who better to help test the iPhone 12 Pro than one of the UK's best tech creators. So we're here, we're gonna get some shots, compare all of the different lenses. That's the 13mm, 26mm, that's the normal length, and the 52mm. So we're going to compare the EOS R professional camera to the iPhone 12. Let's get shooting.
Let's go.
Yo guys, what's up? So I've just got back from London from the day shooting with Tommy, putting the iPhone 12 Pro through its paces. Super good fun for once to just get out and shoot with a phone. Like, I've not done that for a little while, to sort of put a phone through its paces and really give it a test, sort of photography wise. So in terms of the camera we were comparing it to, like I said, I was comparing it to the Canon EOS R. This is the professional stills camera that I use for all of my client work. And in terms of lenses, I wanted to keep the comparisons sort of as scientific and close as possible. So I was using predominantly the Canon 16 to 35mm f2.8 lens. So that's what I was using for the wides to compare it to the 13mm on the iPhone 12. Obviously it doesn't go right down to 13mm, but it uses 16mm, so that's relatively close in terms of equivalent. And obviously I was using that for the 26mm shots as well, so we can get pretty much identical on that one. And then for the 50mm shots, we were using the Canon 50mm f1.8. That was to compare to the 52mm shots and obviously the portrait mode as well. So this is actually my first time shooting with a 13mm wide focal length on a phone. I've never had a phone before that has been able to do this sort of super wide angle, and I absolutely loved it. I actually think this is one of the coolest additions. I know they had this with the previous iPhone versions. It's not brand new to the iPhone 12 Pro, but that 13mm focal length really is exceptional. I think when you compare the photos from the 13mm to the 16mm sort of wides from the professional camera, I actually think the iPhone stacked up exceptionally well. This is one area that the iPhone really excelled in. I think because one of the biggest difference between the professional camera and the iPhone camera is the sort of the sensor size and the ability to get a depth of field, that sort of shallow depth of field, that background blur, and at a wide focal length, that really isn't a look that you're getting on the full frame camera. So the looks that you're getting out of both the camera and the phone are actually relatively comparable. This is amazing for capturing things like architecture, even sort of nice, really cool scenes where you're shooting a subject, like I was shooting Tommy here, and you're getting sort of a nice wide angle with him entirely in the frame. That's something you wouldn't be able to do with a slightly more zoomed in focal length. I do think that you can tell the difference between the professional shots from the professional camera and the iPhone shot, but I really don't think this is an enormous difference. I think if you're just wanting to shoot some really high quality, super wide stills, this sort of super wide 13mm focal length lens on the back of the iPhone is actually a really good choice, and it's probably just in your pocket anyway. Okay, so next up is the standard iPhone focal length. That is 26mm. We have a direct comparison with the EOS R and the Canon 16 to 35. I was able to pretty much dial it into exactly 26, so you get a good like-for-like comparison. And this is where the sort of camera is starting to prove itself a little bit. You are getting a bit more depth of field here at 26mm. And for me, I think the biggest difference is that the iPhone shots shot at 26mm are starting to really look like a phone and like they've been shot entirely on a phone, because this is a view which we've been really used to seeing over the last sort of 6, 7, 8 years. Whilst mobile photography has really taken off, this focal length is almost like synonymous with a phone shot. Don't get me wrong, you can still get some really nice shots out of the iPhone 12 Pro and that 26mm focal length, but I do think that is a big step up between the EOS R and those photos that we've been taking. Okay, so next up we've got the 52mm focal length, and then we're going to talk about portrait mode, because these are two quite separate things. So first, that telephoto 52mm focal range. The fact that you do get a double reach, so 2 times the original zoom on the iPhone. You have that option on the back of the camera, and you're losing no resolution when you're zooming into that. That is really, really cool to be able to get a nice zoomed in shot if maybe you're, taking photos from a little bit further back and you just need that extra reach. This is a great option for that. Again, there's a significant difference, especially when you're comparing it to shooting on something like this, the Canon 50mm f1.8. The biggest thing here is just the depth of field. If you compare this like for like between the 52mm and the 50mm, it's night and day which one comes out on top, and that is why we need to talk about portrait mode. Okay, so as someone who's been using portrait mode for a little while on their iPhone XS Plus, like I've had that camera for like 2 years now, I'd sort of written off portrait mode. I didn't really like it. I obviously just naturally prefer the real thing when it comes to bokeh and it comes to depth of field. Now that doesn't really change. I obviously do prefer the real thing. However, some of these tests that we did with the iPhone in portrait mode actually really surprised me. A big one here was this shoe shot. Like, this is an incredible photo to come out of portrait mode. The fact that this is digitally enhanced, when you put that next to the EOS R photograph, like, that is pretty much like for like. Maybe not in terms of detail and things like that, but the background is really exceptional. And this actually does a very good job of isolating the subject and looking really professional. It's not necessarily perfect though, because portrait mode isn't just a one and done, like always works. There are some times where it really doesn't work, and a big one is when the lighting is not stable in the situation that you're in. So for instance, this shot here was just really not good. Tommy was in the dark and the background was quite blown out, and just had a really hard time pinning down sort of what should be in focus and what shouldn't be. And this for me has always been kind of the issue with portrait mode. What is different now is that you can actually get some really fantastic results with portrait mode, and get results that are relatively similar to something that you might get with a lens like this. Okay, so we're wrapping up here. I think overall I've thoroughly enjoyed shooting today, taking it on an actual proper photo shoot. It is super cool to have a choice of lenses on your phone where you're getting no degradation in quality, So I had to bring my EOS R around. I also had to bring this lens and this lens and some spare batteries. So obviously it's going to be a better result. This is a professional camera that costs, £2,000, almost double the price of this phone. However, it is inconvenient, and that is where the iPhone really comes in. It is massively convenient to have these 3 lens choices in your pocket. I think particularly the ultra wide setting is just something I'm going to absolutely love having on my phone. Just be able to, shoot some crazy architecture shot that you normally would have to have a camera and a super wide lens for. Just one very quick side note is that we still have a significant issue on the iPhone with these really sort of weird lens flares that you get either in low light situations but like this was daytime and I was just shooting with some artificial lights. You can see the sort of strange lens flares that I'm getting in these photos. I really, really wish Apple would have fixed this. It's a pretty significant issue that when you're taking photos in artificial light, you get this sort of horrible mirroring and hazing. But that's just a quick one. I just thought I would mention it because it is an important thing to know about if you are buying one of these phones. But that's kind of my thoughts and feelings about the cameras on these phones. Hopefully you guys have found this video interesting or helpful. I make videos like this on cameras, photography, videography, and just content creation in general. If you are interested in seeing more of them, maybe consider hitting the subscribe button, and otherwise I'll catch you guys next time.